Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Underlords Academy.
He couldn't even finish
You
the
can't
intro.
even say it without laughing, dude.
Finish the intro.
That is on you. So before we get started,
that momentum really carried him through the first two words.
Damn it, dude.
My name is Sunsfan. Joining me is Swim and Zeno.
Hello.
And I need to say this before we actually get started. This is supposed to be not only an Underlords podcast, but an Underlords YouTube channel. You too can be blamed for the name. Am I correct? I actually took a backseat this time because when I picked Digital Chaos as a name, I realized I'm not good at picking names.
I like Digital Chaos. I'm not like
Really?
no dick suck. Yeah, I think it's a good name.
I know
Okay.
the basic history of that name and how it came about. So, it's whatever. You know me and names, so I don't know why you decided to throw this responsibility into my lap.
It's true. Everyone is actually
our old CS team. So, yeah.
Okay, we need to introduce ourselves. So this is for people that are just not maybe familiar with us. My name is Sunsfan. I am a Dota personality. God, it actually is so cringy to say that out loud, but Dota personality. Swim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm a streamer. I come from a card game background. You might know me from Gwent. I also played Artifact for that 1 month that a few people played Artifact. There, a couple of us here perhaps. And I used to play Dota.
Okay, Zeno.
Cool. Yeah. I'm a professional firearms player. Still playing to this day. Other than that, yeah, that's about it. Used to cast some Heroes of Newerth with Sunsfan way back in the day. Then promptly retired into the suburban old people life. And now being dragged back out into a beginner podcast form with my Yeti microphone, sponsored by Yeti. Thank you. And here we go.
Yet. We're looking for sponsors, guys. We need to be sponsor this podcast. Swim, can you get on that?
I'll
please?
talk to the boys about it.
Okay.
I'll
Perfect.
get some monster sponsors.
So let's actually start talking about things that matter.
I like the way I like. Shannon, you and I. What did they say? Great minds think alike.
Good. That's actually scary considering after we hung out in Kiev, how often you took your shirt off in my presence. Dude, it was very sexual.
It was okay. Listen, I'm just gonna say, we got overheated in those studios at time. I'm a man who demands a very, very specific amount of temperature control. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I got to wear the layers. Sometimes I got to take my shirt off. If I'm hot.
So why wear it outside when it's literally below freezing?
Okay. I was shirtless outside when it was below freezing. But I was overheated.
Just to finish this story, he goes outside shirtless, okay, in the middle of the night as we're supposed to be heading back to the hotel. And the driver tells us in Russian that he needs to put his shirt back on immediately because if we're stopped by the cops, we will have problems.
I don't remember that actually. Did he say that?
Yeah, I'm not surprised you don't remember that. All right, starting the actual podcast. Dota Underlords has been kind of released. It's available via the Dota 2 Battle Pass. And next week, I believe, it'll be open for everybody. Kind of came out of nowhere for the most part. Although Swim, I think you've had access. I've had access for a few days. You've had access for how long?
Like a week before. I only played it for like an hour though. I basically just checked it out, gave them some minor feedback.
Wow, I'm glad you gave them feedback from 1 hour of playing. That's very helpful.
No, not like design feedback but literally UI user experience feedback.
Oh, okay. And Zeno, you got access 4 hours before everyone else did, correct?
Oh man. It felt really good. Yeah, enjoyed that.
I had to go through special channels to get a key for him, and then he got access, and then the game came out 4 hours later. So you owe me big time, buddy.
I appreciate the thought, honestly. That's really what matters to me in my heart.
Good. That's good to hear. All right, so let's talk about Dota Underlords. Obviously based off of Auto Chess. First impressions. I want your first impressions, not now. We can get to that later. When you first booted up the game and played, what did you guys think?
I mean, the first thing is it's just like Auto Chess with everything Auto Chess kind of didn't have but needed. It's like right now it's effectively a clone. They patched up items, which is really good for the game, but ultimately they just made the user experience, especially the new player experience, infinitely better, basically. Like you don't have to fiddle with a lot of like clunky things. It's just really streamlined, and you even have like a matchmaking system with ranked coming out next week.
Yeah, I think the ranked matchmaking is pretty much like the best possible feature that they can add to this game that they really couldn't add in like the mod version. Like a lot of this stuff, it's like I don't blame like the previous version for like not having it because it's just stuff that they couldn't add to the game. So it's kind of like with like when they made CS:GO, right? Like CS:GO maybe wasn't perfect when it came out, but just the fact that they had ranked matchmaking built into the game, you don't have to go on IRC, find matches to play, right? Now we won't have to go on any in-house leagues and find matches there. That'll be nice. I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, even without the ranked, right now you can just get in a game immediately and play. When auto chess was made to be a miserable, like you had to be a masochist to play Dota auto chess consistently.
Yeah.
Unless
It's not an
you're
easy
doing,
game
like,
to
in-house.
get started on.
Yeah, so I personally think that the game has like my first. Okay, we can get to some of the negatives as well because you know me, I'm a very negative person. My absolute first impression, because my first impression was when it was leaked, right, and I got access like a day later. First impression, just based on what I was looking, is like this is a mobile game. This is not a PC game.
Oh hell yeah!
Like the art style, things are like look cartoony because of the borders. The UI is just really big. And all of that is true, but I will say, after I played like 3 or 4 games, I pretty much got used to it. Like it doesn't really bother me, but I can understand like first impressions of people being the UI is just too big. Do you think that they will implement something in the future where the PC version will actually differ?
I hope so, because I mean, I think the UI is just unnecessarily clunky. Like for example, one thing that I think would be really good would be to not have to like have different tabs for like items and DPS and the tribes. Like for example, auto chess has those kind of all on the screen at once, and I think that would be something closer to that would be better.
Yeah, and on PC you have the room for it, so I hope they kind of make some tweaks because obviously, as you guys said, this looks like pretty much just a straight mobile port to PC for right now. So hopefully we'll see some more PC specific type. It kind of reminds me of when you get like a console port to PC you've been looking forward to for like 2 years because they finally release it. And then you start using the UI and it's all like radial design and it feels like it's made for console and they ported it over in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
I think like something that's really important is like I do think the look is kind of compromised for mobile, and I think that's definitely a negative thing. A lot of people are giving very negative feedback about the look. Hopefully they're looking into changing that. It would be honestly insane if they weren't. One thing I will say is it seems like they haven't compromised the gameplay too much. I think there's like a temptation with a lot of these studios because auto chess is, I guess something we'll talk about is like there's like 6 different auto chesses coming out in the next year or whatever. And I'm sure a lot of them, or at least some of them, are going to want to make it more mobile friendly, not just from a UI perspective. They're going to want like games to be shorter would be the number one thing. You need to be able to take a dump while playing a mobile game, right? You can do that with Hearthstone. You can't do that with auto chess. And
Are you sure? You can't do that with auto chess?
That's a long dump. You'd have to be pretty constipated. Like the games are like 30.
I mean, you can between rounds, you can just wipe and get ready to go back to your PC. And that's the beautiful thing that they talked about is you can play on your PC. In theory, go take a dump during the same game with your phone, and it just continues, right? Like you don't.
Oh man!
Wait, does that work?
Now we know we're in the future, dude. Like that is.
Seriously?
Next generation.
Yeah,
that's
all right. I'm not, now you guys are making me question myself. Did I dream this?
That's crazy, dude.
I've heard nothing about this.
This is actually like literally the future is here.
Trust me. My dreams are a reality. That's for sure.
All right.
But yeah, the UI can definitely use a little bit of work. I mean, again, after a few games, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Swim mentioned it briefly, but the biggest concern but the biggest thing that I need changed when playing is, especially when I'm watching a stream, showing you call them tribes. They're actually called alliances now, by the way. We can talk about the names in a second here. Yeah. But having the alliances somewhere on the screen at all times, I think would be pretty important because that's the one thing for Dota Auto Chess I really liked. And it was really small too. You can make that a little bigger, but still you get to see exactly what the combos are for if you're watching a stream and whatnot. So I had a suggestion, which can segue into our next thing. Swim liked this idea. And then I found out that the League of Legends game is doing this apparently. So what I want your opinion first on just the idea itself. So the one negative of auto chess in general is it doesn't feel like you're playing against anybody, right? Especially from a spectator standpoint. You're just playing a version of their board. What if when you're in the last two remaining people, they play on the same board?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, Swim, you've apparently already pre-approved this.
Well,
but, I mean, it sounds amazing.
I will clarify. Right. Obviously, with anything, you have to think about like long-term ramifications. I didn't really think about it that much. I just said like, if there's no fatal problems with that, that just sounds good. The one problem that comes to mind is like, you would have people in the last few seconds. If you could literally see your opponent move their pieces around, it would just be like this flip-flop. But that's kind of already how it works. If both players are kind of good enough to be clicking and tapping out on
Let me stop you there for a second. So the way it would work is you still have your two separate boards where you can move around units. You don't see what they're doing. And then when the battle starts, it's on the same board.
Yeah.
The last two people.
It's just like one fight. It's not two things happening.
Yes.
Okay, so another issue with that, and this isn't really like a big issue, but it will, I believe, increase variance. Like the fight RNG will matter more then if it's just like one roll instead of two. However, I think you're right. I think like the point you made is a very good one. Like one of the things is it doesn't really feel like a 1v1. It doesn't feel like you're playing against other players, and I think any solutions to that are good.
Yeah, I even like the idea, honestly, of just having everything play out on one board for the last two. Like, I like the idea, even from like a spectator standpoint, because I know like sometimes it's kind of hard to transition from like being able to play a game, like being able to watch streamers is super entertaining with things like auto chess, but like being able to spectate like an actual 8-person match, like sometimes you kind of lose a lot of the nuance. And like, even if like just from a spectator standpoint, you can see like the last two, see everything shifting around, see that all in real time. I think that'd be kind of cool, purely just from a streaming, like spectating standpoint.
Yeah, I mean the game is kind of like a solitaire game, which is fun to play, but it's not really hyped to like watch. And I think that's like, it kind of has an appeal because solitaire, there's so much you can do with the idea of games that are kind of solitary. And I should know, because part of the reason Gwent was so popular when it was new and fresh is because it was sort of solitary. Like you didn't really interact with your opponent that much. It was very similar. It was like you build your own combos and they build their own combos, right? And with auto chess, that's totally fine. But any steps that can kind of like find a middle ground without compromising like the combo stuff you can do is going to be steps in the right direction.
I mean, like right now you play 1v1 at the end. Well, sometimes you do. Sometimes you have 3 people left and 2 die and you don't have that final battle. But in theory, when you're playing the 1v1, you're like, oh, how much damage am I doing on his board? It's like this back and forth. It's kind of this weird, I don't know, I just feel like it's a little weird. And it's just the auto chess genre in general, right? It's not like this is specifically for Underlords.
Exactly.
But the one thing I do want to mention, this is kind of our segue into the TFT. What is it actually called?
Team Fight Tactics.
The League. Team Fight Tactics for League. So I was watching, I think it was Crip or Savich, and they were talking about, because they got to test this game out, which is coming out next week apparently.
4 days.
That exactly what I'm talking about, the board versus board, is how it is all the time. So there's 4 boards, but how does that work if there's an odd number of people?
So it'll basically alternate giving you, or at least it'll be random, with like an away board versus like a home board. So like every other game or so, you'll be on an away board, and like when you're in a fight, it'll like be like, okay, you're attacking, and it'll just take your camera and put it on the other person's board, and you'll see your perspective from their board, or you'll be on the home board and you'll be defending. And actually, since you bring that up, I think it's a really good idea, honestly. It does change some things. It's not like there aren't negatives to this idea. You can always think of negatives. It does increase variance would be one thing. But I think it really helps the feel of like just like you and your opponent actually fighting the same fight.
All right, I'm confused. If there's 7 people alive, how do you do that?
There would have to be like some specific instance in that case. Right.
What do you mean one specific instance?
Like one person would have to be in some kind of like
they wait out. They just don't play that round.
It's possible they wait out. I don't know exactly how it is. I haven't heard exactly how it works in the League one, but it's either they wait out but more likely it's like they play like a clone of someone else's board would make the most sense. Or maybe they take like 3 people and give them a triangle.
Then, right?
It copies the board.
The idea of consolidating into 4 boards means that one person is taking, like, whoever loses is taking that set amount of damage, and the other person is winning on that board. But if you have 2 instances where somebody has their units on 2 boards, then it feels a little weird, you know? Because that guy can't be damaged twice.
It can. It's just copying for like offensive purposes, right? So it's like you're defending against someone else or whatever. And yeah.
Yeah, but defending and offensive, that doesn't mean anything technically because you both can take damage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
If I'm understanding it correctly.
I think you're right about that. But yeah, chat's saying they basically just like copy another board. I don't know. I do think like there's definitely a few different ways it could play out in terms of how it the best way to kind of make it work. But I honestly think it's a good idea. I kind of expect most future auto chesses to be built in that way instead of the way Underlords is currently built.
I think they can still transition to that if they really want, especially just the 1v1 at the end, because the spectator aspect is going to be what drives this game beyond what it is now, right? And right now it is, I mean, auto chess in general is a little bit hard to spectate because you have 8 battles going on at the same time. The storylines make it more difficult to actually follow as a result of that. So there can definitely be some improvements to come. But speaking of TFT, the fact that it was announced it's coming out next week, Underlords kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, we kind of knew it was coming for a bit, but
we don't know
that is
when.
not a lot of time to build a game, and they did. Do you think that if League hadn't announced their plans, would Underlords be out right now?
I guess there's a good chance it wouldn't be. I don't know. I guess it's a toss-up. I think Valve wanted to release it early either way, but yeah, I mean, this might have lit a fire under their ass, so to speak.
I kind of get the impression that like, maybe some form of it would be coming out right around the same time. To me, it does seem like maybe they pushed forward their rollout. Like I was not expecting them to come out and be like, yeah, we're opening this up to all Battle Pass owners right off the bat. Like that's a pretty huge player base to pull from for testing. So that means, one, they're obviously trying to get it out there before, any competition, which makes sense. Like that's what they really had to do. I think everyone was pretty pleasantly surprised that they actually did it. Given, sometimes Valve can take a little while to get things out. They want to get things, nice and up to their quality standards. So, I do think that maybe, as you said, it kind of, once all these announcements came out during E3, it probably helped push things forward a little bit or help them bill some more overtime hours, I guess.
Do you think Dota Auto Chess is 100% dead?
The mod?
Emphasis on 100%. Give me a percent dead. Dota Auto Chess is right now.
The number is going to differ from like right now compared to like a year from now. I think right now it's probably like 60% dead. Well, I say right now, I mean like a week from now when Underlords is free and accessible. I would say it's 60% dead. In a year from now, it'll probably be like 90% dead with the modders not really working on it. And I think that's honestly okay.
Well, that's the question. Are they going to work on it? They haven't said anything.
I don't think they're going to stop updating it, but at the very least, they are. I mean, they have to be dedicating like less resources to it, right? So.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that they'll put a ton into that after they get the PC launch going on.
Yeah.
On Epic Games Store and all that.
That's not them.
Are you sure? Are you 100% sure about that? Because
I'm 99% sure.
All right. Because when they did roll out that announcement, it was very much like Grotto Studio developing this in partnership with whatever various mobile game creators.
So my understanding, and I do have a source on this, and it could be an incorrect source. Okay, I'm not saying they're 100% right, but I get the impression that it is correct. The impression that they give off is that they essentially sold the IP. No, not the IP. That's not the right way, because that's Dota characters. They sold the idea of the game to this Chinese mobile company. Grotto did, and they essentially allowed them just to copy paste like everything, right? And after that announcement was made, of course, they're in the meanwhile advertising this game. They're still updating the PC mod, but now that Underlords is out, I don't see a reason to really do that. And they've obviously sold a lot, or they've gotten a lot of revenue from actually selling the rights to this Chinese company that's now going to Epic Store. It's even less reason to update this mod, honestly. Yeah. Do you think and we can talk about the Grotto Auto Chess. Have you guys even played that one, the mobile?
Yeah,
I played it like a couple times. Yeah.
And is it good?
I mean,
I thought it was fine.
It's sort of the same as Underlords, which is basically it's like the same game, but they improved the UI. It's kind of like, I mean, it's a mobile game only, so it kind of more so fits the mobile kind of UI that they're going for. Whereas this is like mostly PC players are playing Underlords right now. I mean, it's basically the same. It's kind of like harder to, you have to learn all the characters because they all have different names. Dude, Alchemist is called Venomancer. Like,
Yeah.
Are you serious?
yes, they all have like weird names, and they just like literally called one of them the wrong name.
So in terms of, let's talk about because at this point I feel like there's only 3 contending auto chesses at the moment, because
Yeah.
Dota auto chess is basically just done. You got Underlords, you got TFT, and you have the Epic Store's auto chess. What order do you think is most likely the success level of each? Rank them 1 to 3. Not what you hope, what you think will happen.
I think it's too much anyone's game. I don't know. I like some of the design ideas of the League one, and I really like the Dota design team actually. I think their design team is actually kind of genius in a few ways. I really like some of the changes they've made. Like Gods, for
You mean
example.
from like a game design, or
Yeah, from like how they are implementing certain things. Like obviously the game is rusty in some ways, and like a lot of people are gonna say, well, teehee, you know, they're idiots for putting items in the game the way they did or something like that. It's like it's not perfect, but some of their decisions just show really good like design chops.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just too early to say. Like, I mean, they'll come out and I don't know. We'll see, right?
All right, you guys are losers. I'm going to give a rank. So number 3 is the Epic Store Auto Chess. That's like the easiest one, I think. There's no way it's going to do better than the other 2. There's no way. And now this one, the League one, is so interesting to think about because it's such a popular IP. But at the same time, there's a large amount of people that don't like learning new things. And the Dota IP is just familiar.
Yep.
Right? So, actually, now that I say this, I don't know what.
I'm having a strong negative reaction to this
also,
theory here.
I want
to finish.
What theory? What's wrong with this theory?
What? They don't want to learn a different. They don't want to learn new things. But your theory is it's the lore they don't want to learn. It's just the Dota lore.
It's the abilities of all the heroes.
Yeah.
Champions.
I don't
sorry.
know. Right, but theoretically,
think
they would already have that base from playing League of Legends, right?
Well, League of Legends. Okay, this is the thing. League of Legends players will play that. Dota players will play Underlords. What about everybody else that isn't a part of either? Technically, what do they play? That's what the rank
and then it's
really
like,
is.
okay, so you have Fortnite players that might hop on the Epic Games Store and play that one too. It comes
That
down
one's
to
third
more
regardless.
which one,
Let's forget about that one, all right? Come on.
is
in the
which one
dumpster.
will actually come out as which one will convert people like us, right? Like people that actually like Dota or actually like Auto Chess or actually like League of Legends, you know, conversely. What will bring them over? Like what crossover will there be? And I think that's sort of the question where we have no idea because all these games are so new right now.
I think one thing that's kind of important to take into account is that popularity is not necessarily an objective metric. There's a lot of games, for example, that are popular in certain circles that just aren't our circles, right? So, for example, a lot of games are really popular in like China or in the East that aren't really popular here. And the same is true for like mobile versus PC. It's just like a completely different circle. So some games are going to be more popular in mobile circles that a lot of PC players haven't heard of or just don't really play, right? And I think that's kind of important to take into consideration. For example, Shadowverse, a card game, is really, really big in like Japan. But it's teeny tiny in America. Like almost nobody has heard about it. So by that standard, I think League is going to focus more on PC, and it's probably going to have a less compromised PC product as a result of it, right? Whereas,
so that's an interesting point because the fact that they said they're not even working on a mobile, or at least it's not coming out anytime soon for League, is actually a big deal.
Yeah. And
like so Underlords will have that leg up immediately.
Yeah, and League is a more popular IP as well. So I don't know. Yes. I do think. I mean, I'm not gonna say like which game is gonna be better. It's like you said. If we're talking popularity, I think honestly, it's probably delusional to expect Underlords to be the most popular. I think like if we're just like talking expectations and probability, I think the League one has a better shot objectively right now at just being more popular in the circles we actually talk about, which is like PC gamers. I don't know. I mean, mobile is nice, but we're not mobile gamers, right? And also League is just a more popular game than Dota, which helps the boost as well. I'm not saying it's, Underlords is going to be a worse game. I personally am a Dota player. I like all Dota players. Don't really like League, but League is...
Can you see a world where you play that a lot? just based on the fact that you don't like
TFT?
the IP?
It
Yeah.
was fun.
Absolutely.
I would play it.
I mean, well,
I don't like
I
it
don't
at
I
all.
don't dislike the League IP. I just dislike the actual game. Like there's I mean, there's so like look at it objectively. Like Dota version is kind of going for a more mobile market and League version isn't. I think there's a chance that, and I'm not saying this will happen, but there's definitely a chance where the League version ends up being like the Dota in that relationship, you know? Like it might end up being in some ways the more nuanced one. It completely depends, because right now all they have is like blank slates. They've basically both kind of copied over the auto chess mechanics, and in a year and a half from now everything's going to look different. But if Dota really wants to push the mobile one, it will have to make compromises for that.
Right. I think the other thing, like as you said, League has, because they're focusing on PC, the opportunity to kind of branch off and sort of be a little bit more creative. Whereas like with Underlords, it's directly competing against another basically mobile version of auto chess. Like those are very similar games where the differences between the two of them are going to be less pronounced, right? So like that could end up like splitting that player base a little bit, and then you have people, that play PC games, as we said, that go and they're trying to find something that's a little bit less mobile, has a little bit more complexity to it, or even whatever, better graphics, more skins, who knows? And that might be just a big demographic of people on the PC for the new TFT game to kind of capture.
Do you think, and this is the last question I'm going to ask about the comparisons, because I think we're going a little long on this, but do you think that the fact that TFT is in the League client and Underlords is a game in it of itself, which one is in better position just purely on that fact to actually succeed? Do you think there's a negative to either side?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question, actually. Like, being in the League client basically makes it less hassle for League players, but like a bigger download and more hassle for non-League players. I don't know. That's actually a good question. It's kind of like a sort of a tie, I guess.
Like, let's say, because I'm not saying this was what they should have done or anything. It's just a thought in my head when they first talked about this. If Underlords was in Dota client, like forget about being in the arcade, it's just its own tab to the right of the arcade called Underlords. Is there a real negative to doing that as opposed to having it as its own game?
I don't know. It's a bigger download. It's more complex to get new people into
That's
the
true.
game.
I didn't think about that.
Okay. Like I know for me, just seeing it, it's like, okay, this thing is 1,200 megabytes. You just download that in 5 seconds. You hop in, everything's fast, everything's smooth. You get right into a game. I think that's nice. And like coming, from the perspective of, do I really want to go download this League of Legends client and get into all that infrastructure that I don't really care about at all just to play this game? I would be more inclined to just go download, a smaller client for TFT that's solely focused on that and just play that.
Especially considering your cap limits in Canada, am I right?
Oh, I don't have any of this. How dare you?
Oh, okay.
I think it's not so much about the download side is a good point. People bring that up. It's not just about that. It's also like if you look at like the Steam store, and this is another thing if we're talking about the comparison, which like you said we're already talking about too much, but if we're talking about the comparison between like the League game and the Dota one, the League one is not going to be on like Steam, right? Presumably, because it's in the League client. And that's the big deal. Like they can push it on Steam, whereas if it was just like an extension in Dota, what are they going to be like? Oh, click on Dota, it's brand new. It's just harder to market. It's not new and flashy and going to be like free on Steam, like main pages and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know we want to move on from this, but like one last thing. Just because I was thinking about this before too, like I do think it literally just comes down to being better for people already within the infrastructures that we're talking about, e.g. people that play Dota or League, and maybe just not as good for people outside of that. So one, they probably want, for League, they want to focus on what's the easiest way we can on-ramp people onto the League client. For Dota, kind of conversely, it's sort of like, when we were playing this, it's like, man, I really feel like I'm missing out on, like, what if they integrated this into Dota and you could use your own skins and show them off to other people, and it'd make you actually want to go spend $30 on an Arcana because you want to have that awesome looking, 3-star whatever, PA or something, right? Like there's so many opportunities for monetizing that, for making the current armory that you have cool, that kind of felt like something where if they integrate into the client, it would get a lot of interest from people that actually kind of still care about the skins, right? Still care about that kind of stuff. But that's all I say. We can move on. The end.
Okay, moving on. But that was a very interesting discussion, and we'll have more to talk about next time with that specific subject as well, because by next time I think TFT will actually be out. I would like to ask you both your favorite, and to balance it out, your least favorite thing about Underlords currently.
I would say my single favorite thing. So objectively, the user experience or the user interface is the most important thing. My single favorite thing is probably the addition of all the auras into the game. I think like items like arcane boots, like Drow aura, which is granted OP, the troll global aura, basically anything that has like needs to be positioned in a certain way, even the knight's buff, it adds a lot of layering to how you need to position your heroes.
Okay. And to balance it out,
oh, the single worst thing. I think the item system is very imperfect. It's a step in the right direction in terms of like
did
the
you
actual.
just say you love the items the most, and you also think it's your least favorite thing?
I like the auras, which some of them are items, but I dislike the actual implementation of the item system. I'm also really sure it's going to change in some ways. I think like the way the drops are handled is a step in the right direction. It's like a set of 3 instead of a random drop. That's good, but there's a lot of asterisks that are problems. Like for example, the fact that you can find like most item choices, I feel like aren't really choices. You see globals that you can't use for at the time, or you see like a tier 4 and 2 tier 1s. Like you can see that. It's not even that uncommon. Like you can see a tier 4, a tier 2, and a tier 1. It's like, okay, I guess I'm taking the tier 4, right? And it's just like, it feels like it removes a lot of agency. And one minor asterisk is I don't like that you can't put multiple items on the same hero. It makes it more balanceable, but it reduces a ton of complexity with how builds operate.
Okay. I disagree with a lot of that, but go ahead, Zeno.
Well, I was actually going to jump in and basically say one of the things that I like the most is the changes to the items. Obviously, as Swim went over, like there's a lot of tweaking that needs to be done, but I think that just applies to the game, and it's still in beta, so like. And not to get off on a tangent here, but I think like one really cool thing is it's basically like, yeah, we're getting in, like this isn't a beta that's just literally a demo 1 week before the release of a game, as like everything is these days. This is like an active beta that they're still working on. It seems like things will change pretty dynamically, especially at the start. So that's cool. We'll see what they do. But like just the fact that you don't have this weird RNG with the items anymore, where it might be round 20 and you get like 2 Ring of Regenerations and you're just sitting there like, oh, that's wonderful, while someone else is hitting, a lot of great items. They're getting blade mails up. They're getting all this cool stuff. So I think in that regards, it's good. I completely agree that it really does feel like when you're presented these item choices that there's usually only like one that's the right decision to make for how you're playing. And I feel like if they changed it, so maybe it's just like it modifies like maybe tactics, like do you want to go offensive or defensive? Do you want to try and apply like a debuff in a certain way with certain heroes, or help with your positioning? Like so it modifies the way you play versus like, well, this thing's for hunters, I'm not playing hunters. This thing's for mechs, I'm not playing mechs. This thing is good, so I'm picking it. Right. I completely agree with that. There's not a lot of nuance to picking items for the most part. But overall, I think removing some of the RNG of just some people getting garbage and other people getting really good items is an excellent change. For things I dislike the most, it's so weird because I really feel like for the most part, like this is just a better version of auto chess in almost every way, as long as they continue to work on the balance and stuff like that and just fix minor issues.
Yeah.
But I do think that with the caveat of they very well might go do this, like having a mobile UI on a PC game when I'm sitting on like 1440p with a giant monitor with like huge blocky clunky pieces of information everywhere, and I can literally see infinitely less information than I could in auto chess. And I think that's sort of frustrating to like seem like you're developing this whole new game, but you're taking a step backwards from like literally a mod. So maybe that, just the UI could use a little bit more work for PC specifically.
Okay. Very good. Very thorough, I have to say. All right. For my favorite,
Give it to me.
I mean, by far my favorite thing is the items. I think it's like a 10 out of 10 compared to the auto chest, which was a 1 out of 10.
Oh
and
my.
This might be exaggerating a bit, but I cannot tell you how much I hated the item system in auto chest. It was the actual worst thing I've experienced in like gaming in the last 5 years, literally. Other than Battlefield, which is a terrible game, but that's another story. So, but since we talked about items so much, I'll also talk about like how fluid the game is with combining, with moving heroes around. It just feels so much smoother, which should be expected. You kind of brought this up earlier, the fact that in Dota Auto Chess, they literally, physically could not do those things because it's a mod. They have a lot of restrictions. So we kind of expected this to be a thing eventually. And it's just, even though we're expecting it, it still feels really good. As far as things that I don't like that can be improved on, we've talked about the UI, which I won't get into anymore since feels like we've talked about it so much. I wish that gods were in the game. That is the one thing I truly miss. And I know Zeno hates gods, but Swim and
I don't. Whatever. Finish your nonsense.
Zeno absolutely despises. He thinks people that go gods are garbage. Meanwhile, I like getting a Mars round 1 and just committing to gods right then and there. That is the strat. That's how you know you have testicles.
The thing is, I agree with both of you guys. I mean, I think gods are well designed and they're really fun. But I mean, I think most people that go gods are garbage.
Well, here's the thing, though. I was thinking, I don't think they can actually put gods in the game because of the mage item, which I'm forgetting the name now. It's like flash, where when a mage gets to 30% HP, their abilities refresh. It's like just a refresher, essentially. And you can just cast your stuff right away. So I feel like with that and gods, that sounds a little ridiculous, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not more ridiculous than that item already is with mages, which I think I haven't really seen it that much. I can't tell if it's like OP or bad. It's hard to say.
And I do just want to clarify. I think overall they have done an amazing job, honestly, with like Dota Auto Chess. Like from when I started playing it to like its current state, like they really haven't, like the things they've added to the game have all been so good for a mod. Like it really. So I know I make fun of you for trying to force gods early every single game, but like they really did a great job. So I do think that when you're playing this version, like you do miss some of those additions from Dota Auto Chess that don't show up in this game. So
I think. Oh, sorry.
No, please, Swim.
Well, real quick. In addition to gods, for something so incredibly simple, I think IO actually adds a surprising, almost shocking amount of like depth to like different ways to use it. There's a lot of disagreements among like good players.
I've seen you use IO. You just keep it on your bench the whole fucking game.
Yeah.
Come on.
No. I am a proponent of the strategy of dying with IO on our bench. I think it's usually the best way to play it.
Okay. But I agree. Yeah, IO was actually a really cool addition that I forgot about as well. So. All right, so the final main topic that I want to briefly talk about is the seasonal aspect of Dota of Underlords. The text. Let me see if I can actually find it here. So let me read the text that is on the front screen. Welcome to the beta season of Dota Underlords. With every new season, the selection of Underlords, heroes, synergies, and items will change. For the beta season, we're focusing on a core set of heroes, synergies, and items before we add the new category of Underlords to choose from. Thank you for joining us on this adventure. Blah, blah, blah. So, how do you guys take that text? Because I've seen a couple of different interpretations.
I think there's one way to take it that's good and one way to take it that's bad. I think like the hero rotation interpretation of that sort of scares me if it's like similar to something like Heroes of the Storm or League, where it's like you rotate through, sets of heroes that are a subset of the overall amount, and sometimes you don't get to play with the ones that you really like or the builds that you really like. If it's just rotating stuff in and out because they need to balance things and whatever, they want to keep it kind of static for a couple of months, that's fine. I mean, that seems fine.
So which one do you think it is, though?
I don't know. I really don't know. I hope it's the latter.
Okay, Swim.
I think it's going to be closer to like standard rotation sets in card games like Magic or Hearthstone that you might be familiar with, where it's like this is more so how I expect patches or expansions to be, as opposed to something like weekly cycles where they'll like rotate in certain heroes and rotate out others. Sort of like how Auto Chess has been already doing. Like they've rotated out a lot of heroes like Ogre and Riki and Slark and stuff like that. I just expect a larger scale.
Okay, I think it's the rotation as well. I don't think it has like, why would they make it sound like that if they're just balancing it?
Yeah.
They would just say we're balancing it like every other game that we do. So I do think that they will be rotating heroes in and out. But the good news is they have 118, I want to say, heroes to choose from. So there could be a lot of variety. And like right now, everybody's super familiar for the most part if they played Auto Chess with everything that's in the game. There's some slight changes, of course, like Burrow Strike applies Caustic, or Sand King applies Caustic Finale as well as Burrow Strike. Little changes that I really like. By the way, we didn't even mention some of these, but I think Bloodseeker is really cool. I think Slark Essence Shift is really cool. Arc Warden sounds cool, but also worthless at the same time. Sounds like a hero that is very dependent on items, but just the idea is cool. So like all these new additions, excited to see what pros do with them. Pros like Swim, of course.
Yeah.
You know, which you did try something weird on stream today, which is we'll just briefly talk about this one before we wrap this up. What was that item called? The Brawny item?
Yeah, it's the I don't know what it's called. It's the Brawny Global. I don't remember global names. It's just
So
the Brawny
heroes, you can look at their kill count, right?
Yeah.
And if you get that item early, it adds 50 HP to all Brawny heroes, aka orcs, for each kill that they get. So you went like the hardcore strat of literally only putting in Brawny heroes and leveling them up to like level 3. So like Beastmaster, Axe, Jug. And how much HP did you gain by the end of the game?
At the end of the game, I had a Beastmaster 3 that had 8,350 health with 119 kills. So across all of my Brawny units, I think I had a total of about 250 or 200 kills, which means I would have had, let me just do some quick math, about 10,000 extra health on the board. It's kind of nuts. Also, I want to clarify, I believe, and I might be mistaken, but I think that item is retroactive. So any units you have that have kills will still gain the buff if you get it after.
Interesting.
Do creeps count?
Yes, creeps count. So for example, there's a lot of interesting things about that strat. I did so for the first few rounds, I prioritized weakening my board and taking out things that would have made my board stronger just for having more orc last hits. And for stuff like creep rounds, you just want to put all your orcs on the board and take out your good units because you don't need stuff like undead or hunters against creeps. You just want to make sure your orcs are getting last hits every time.
Right. Very cool. I like the addition of some of these items because it just allows you to go for some like that. If you think about it, that's like the stupidest strat.
Right. Yeah.
But it's awesome and it's fun and it works at times if you do it right. It's very cool. It makes you think completely differently about how to play, which I like a lot.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. So before we wrap this up, I just wanted to say that before I agreed to do this podcast, I made sure that everybody else agreed to one term, and that is to have one really stupid topic per episode that we can wrap the episodes up with. And for today, instead of, I know you guys want to do a tier list, but we're just going to say, what is your favorite dinosaur and why?
Triceratops.
Why?
It's badass. It's got the, I don't know. Listen, when I was a young tyke, we had this movie series called The Land
a young
Before
what?
Tyke? Like a little tyke? Like a kid? What did you think I said? Anyway, we had this movie series called The Land Before Time, and they had all the dinosaurs as characters, and I really liked the Triceratops character.
I don't even remember. I just remember the main character was a Brontosaurus, right?
That's correct.
Like a baby.
Yes.
That was an amazing movie.
Okay, Zeno?
I feel like I've been undercut here on our Underlords podcast because I have a little Triceratops as my stupid little icon in whatever Discord. And I rolled in here the other day, and Sven's like, oh, yeah, Triceratops are okay, but It's no Stegosaurus or whatever the heck you like. You talk shit. You went tier 2 on the Triceratops, and here you are coming in now and stealing it from.
That's what Swim does, man. He likes to be edgy.
You know what? I don't care. I like Triceratops too. Screw you. I'm not going to change it up just because you.
All right. Well, what's your reason?
I also love Land Before Time. Triceratops is awesome. They have like the giant like shield face and horns. I mean, come on. And I played Counter-Strike under the name Briceratops, which is a combination of my name and Triceratops for a couple of years. So I have a history. So
wow,
take that.
That is quite the lore story. Very
Thank
good.
you.
It's better than I like Land Before Time.
That is an amazing.
All right, but I do have to say that you're both incorrect. The best dinosaur of all time is an Ankylosaurus, and there's a very simple reason why that they are the best. So, what is the greatest species in the history of Earth?
Ants.
Incorrect. The correct answer. You're doing really bad this episode, Swim. The correct answer is humans. Okay. Why are humans the best? Well, there's one. All right, there's many reasons, but one of those reasons is the fact that we have created tools to help us evolve over time. Yes? Even if you go back thousands of years, you can find these primitive tools that humans use to accelerate the evolution process in terms of cultivating the land, etc., etc. What does the Ankylosaurus have on his tail? It's a fucking club. He had not only a weapon, but a tool of destruction before humans even existed. Right. Thus making Ankylosaurus the best dinosaur of all time.
Yeah, he invented the club. We just net decked it.
Yes, that's true. We did net deck it. And we power creeped it into some crazy ass stuff. All right, so that is the end of the episode, the inaugural episode of whatever this podcast is called, which may change because I really hate it.
Say it, Sunsfan. Say it. Call it.
The Underlords Academy podcast. So something that I should have mentioned at the beginning of the episode is that I briefly did, but the YouTube channel is right now. The link is youtube.com/c/Underlords Academy. What will we be doing on that channel, friends? So I will be doing like some of the basic rundowns of Underlords. Xena will be doing kind of intermediate stuff, and Swim will be doing quote unquote professional level stuff.
Dude, you saw his last game. Like, come on. He's defining the meta.
I just want to say
Underlords.
Auto chess I never really took like that seriously. Despite having one of the highest, if not the highest, ongoing tournament record performances
we'll get to that in a second.
The Western auto chess tournament scene. I didn't take it that seriously. However, I plan on actually taking Underlords a lot more seriously. I actually do want to compete. It's a fun game.
Okay. Good. I do need to preface isn't the right word since this is after the fact, but the reason that Swim has one of the best tournament win rates of all time in auto chess is because every single time he got a refresher orb. Like, how is that possible? Every time I cast you, you get a goddamn refresher and you win the tournament. Literally, that's the reason I hate auto chess, because you won the tournaments based on RNG alone. So,
oh my,
that's a thing. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. You can watch it on the channel later, and the audio stuff, just follow us on Twitter, and you'll figure it out. It might take a bit to get out on the normal podcast app. So until next time, Suns fan Zeno and Swim signing out. Goodbye.
Go Raptors.
Later.